Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you're all doing well. Let's talk about a fight that could be potentially the fight of the year. Now, in the last month or so, I've said this about a couple of fights. I mean, the Nick Ball Dogbay fight was a bit too one-sided to be, a fight of the year, but it was a good fight. But this one, I think, I'm going to stick my neck out again and say this is a potential fight of the year candidate. It is between Subriel Matias and Shohjahon Ergashev. Now, let's go through these guys' records one at a time. Subriel Matias, currently the IBF super lightweight champ, 19 wins with 19 KOs, 1 defeat, no draws. He's 31, and I thought he was a little bit younger, but no, he's 31. I checked it beforehand. Orthodox fighter, and won the title earlier this year in a fight, actually a performance that I think is one of the best of the year. We talk a lot about Terence Crawford and Naoya Inoue. Their brilliant performances during that 5-day period earlier in the year. But I don't think we should forget Subriel Matias' performance against Jeremiah Ponce, because Ponce came in with a record of 30 wins, no draws and no defeats, 20 KOs. From Argentina, 5'11", a big super lightweight, and many predicted that he would beat Matias. You might remember Ponce from coming over to England and beating up Lewis Ritzel and stopping him. That was the one where the towel was thrown in and I think the referee kicked it out, and there was some controversy about that. But Matias, his performance was absolutely brilliant. It reminded me a lot of Michael Watson's performance against Nigel Benn back in 1989, which, I'm old enough to remember that. Fantastic performance by Watson, in which he knew that the storm, he was going to walk into the storm. So he covered up, held his hands high. He didn't have his gloves like that, tight against the head. He had his hands extended to more or less protect the head, used the elbows to protect the body. He soaked up the early pressure from Ben and eventually wore him out and knocked him out in 6 rounds. And this was very, very similar because Matias soaked up Ponce's pressure, and my God, there was a lot of it. In the first round, it was all Ponce, but right at the end of the first round, Matias started to let his hands go, and he definitely, from the second round onwards, was counter-punching very well. He was fighting Ponce at his own game, standing in close, fighting in the pocket, letting Ponce shoot his bolt, and then coming back with some very good hooks, especially to the body, didn't neglect the body, to the head. In the third round of that fight, it was noticeable that for the first time, Ponce was on the ropes and Matias was the one putting it on him. And they had this sort of phone booth firefight for 5 rounds. And then right at the end of the 5th round, Matias let his hands go. And it wasn't really one punch that put him over, but Ponce hit the floor, got up right at the end of the round, and the referee stopped the fight, or the corner pulled him out. I think the referee stopped the fight. But this was a fantastic performance of, soaking up pressure and then counter-punching and forcing a man who is clearly, the pressure fighter, the one putting the heat on you, forcing him to continue using up energy, burning up energy, because whenever Ponce wasn't letting his hands go, Matias was whacking him. He was counter-punching, forcing a guy who wants to be in the pocket to constantly fight, constantly shoot his bolt, drain him, and then knock him out. It was a fantastic performance by Matias, and I genuinely think he's 31 now, but this guy is a very, very special fighter. I love watching him. This is his first defence against Shohjahon Ergashev, and Ergashev is from Uzbekistan. And strangely enough, even though he's undefeated, he's got 23 wins with 20 KOs, no draws and no defeats. I'm not sure of his age, actually. I didn't look that up beforehand, but he's actually talking about retiring, which is very strange. I mean, he did turn professional back in 2015. So he's been professional for 8 years. He hasn't fought. He hasn't had any career-defining opportunities. I think he's just sort of fed up with the fact that none of the big names will fight him. But Matias, to his credit, says, "No, I'll fight you. Come on, I got the belt. You come get it." So Ergashev can't complain now. I mean, this is a great opportunity. As far as styles are concerned, Ergashev is a southpaw. He stands very tall. He's about 5'10", 5'11". He stands up, or sometimes he's bolt upright. And as a southpaw, he will load up punches from the word go. He is a very fast starter, and he loves firing that backhand, with absolute maximum meat on it. Very often, even though he does have quite a good jab when he uses it, but he will use the jab, the southpaw jab, or the southpaw hand, as a rangefinder, and he will do that unashamedly, and then fire the left hand over the top. It's almost like, I've got the left hand, I'm just going to constantly whack this guy until he falls over. Now, Ergashev went the distance in 2019 with Mikhail Fox, which is probably the best record, the best fighter on his record. Fox has turned out to be a sort of gatekeeper type. I think he's got about 4 losses now, all on points, but at the time he was undefeated. He was 19-0. Doesn't hit very hard at all, Fox. Only got about 4 or 5 KOs on his record. But Matias beat him. He went the distance with him. He beat him. No argument. He won the fight clearly. But since then, he's only ever been 8 rounds once, and that was last year. It was an 8-round decision over Luis Veron. Apart from that, all his fights have ended in the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th round. He's had about, since the Mikhail Fox fight, he's had about 7 or 8 fights, but they've all ended early. And this is the knock against Ergashev, because as good as he is, and he does have a lot of power and some decent skills, the question is, can he get into those later rounds if the power doesn't get Matias out of there early? And can he fight consistently, maintain that power, show a good engine, and grind down Matias? Because we know Matias can do that. He can fight all night. He's got a very good engine on him. Whenever I see that issue with a fighter not having got into the second half of a fight, especially if it's a 12-round fight, that's always a big alarm bell for me. A big sort of red flag. I think, hang on a minute, this guy hasn't done many rounds. Again, just like Ben against Watson, after 5 rounds he was shagged because he let everything go, just like Ponce did against Matias. Matias drew his sting. Now, it is quite possible, because Ergashev really throws everything. I mean, every punch has got some serious wallop on it. So it is possible he could catch Matias. Matias has been on the floor and does have a defeat on his record. But this is very interesting, because the defeat came against Petros Anyan. That was in 2020. He lost over 10 rounds. He's since avenged that defeat with a 9th round retirement 2 years later. But 2 fights before the first Anyan fight, in 2019, Matias was involved in the fight with Maxim Dadashev, who died afterwards. And if you kill an opponent, literally kill them, the psychological effect, it should go without saying, is immense. I remember as there was a line in the great Clint Eastwood movie, The Unforgiven. It's a cowboy movie. Go and watch it. Fantastic movie. Clint Eastwood has made so many great movies, but this is one of them, where Clint's character says, "It's a hell of a thing killing a man. You take away everything he was and everything he was going to be." Maybe I haven't quite got the quote right, but it's now that will have a huge, unless you're a complete psychopath, that will have a huge emotional weight in your mind, on your psyche. And I think Matias, although he comes from quite a rough background, killing Dadashev, although it was an accident in inverted commas, because of course boxing is violence made civilized. It's, they call it the sweet science. I prefer the phrase the sweet art, because it's not really scientific. It's more of an art form. But it is violence made, supposedly made into a gentleman's sport. But you kill a man, that's going to have an effect on you. But it can work the other way. It can toughen you up. So if you're in a grueling fight, you know that you can go the whole hog. Let's put it that way. And I think that is going to be the difference between these 2 fighters. I think that Matias will soak up Ergashev's early pressure, he might even go on the floor. He might be stunned. He might be, he might have to walk through fire. But once they get into the second half of the fight, I see Matias, having drawn a lot of Ergashev's sting, a lot of his energy, taking over and gradually grinding down Ergashev. I can see him stopping Ergashev about rounds 9, 10, 11, that sort of thing. Because I can never get past the idea that a fighter has no experience in the second half of a fight. I always find that to be an absolute alarm bell. So my prediction is that Subriel Matias will stop Shohjahon Ergashev in about 9 or 10 rounds, roughly. It could go the distance. And of course, it's perfectly possible that Ergashev will stop Matias early. He's got the power. But if you're putting a gun to my head and I have to make a prediction, I'm going to say that the experience over the long course of a fight, the grueling, fire that you have to walk through, like walking on broken glass, maybe, that type of mentality belongs to Subriel Matias. And Ergashev has talked about retirement, which is never a good sign in a fighter. Late on, I see Matias stopping Ergashev late in the fight, the last quarter of the fight. I'll go with that. All right. So that's my prediction. Please leave your comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? If you disagree with me, that's fine. Give me your reasons why you disagree with me, why you think Ergashev will win. Maybe you think he knocks out Matias early. Maybe you think Matias dominates the fight. You tell me what you feel, all right? Comments below, please. I always love reading them. I love doing the videos as well. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and please hit the like button. Much love to all of you. Take care and bye for now.